We'll be looking at Ephesians 4, verses 25 through 32. The name of this message is Transformation. Matter of fact, there'll be a couple messages in this section, verses 25 through 32. Transformation. What does transformation mean? What does that word mean, transformation? It means a metamorphosis takes place. It means a complete change in your conduct and in your character. A metamorphosis is what takes place when a caterpillar changes into this beautiful butterfly. Transformation, a metamorphosis, change, morph, form. A change of form of what you used to be. In the beginning of Ephesus, written to the church at Ephesus, in the beginning of Ephesians, we saw that we were saints, seated in heavenly places, blessed with every spiritual blessing, redeemed. So now these same saints, these redeemed ones, these ones that have been made alive, now this metamorphosis is supposed to take place. That nasty looking caterpillar is supposed to become this beautiful butterfly now. When the Lord saved us, He changed us. He made us new creatures. Now we're being transformed. We're being conformed into the image of Christ. That's why it says that all things work together for good. Not to make you happy, but to transform you, conform you into the image of His Son. Transformation. Now, what does this transformation look like? How does it play itself out? We'll be looking this time at verses 25 and 29 of Ephesians 4. Therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. And verse 29, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, so that for this reason it may impart grace to its hearers. Christ was very serious about this subject about words. Turn to Matthew 12. We'll see what Christ had to say about words. In the book of John, still go to Matthew, this is just a side note since I mentioned about word. In the book of John, it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Here's a little Hebrew lesson. That's the term dabar, hadavar, hadabar. And it means this, the real thing. In the beginning was the real thing. The real thing was with God, and the real thing was God. So when a Hebrew mind looks at this text, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth, and about corrupt words. They're coming from a mindset of this is supposed to be the real thing that you're speaking. The Lord told us in Matthew 12, verses 34 to 37. But I say to you that for every idle word men may speak, they will give account of it in the day of judgment. With that in mind, look closely at Ephesians 4, verse 25. This whole thing about words. We live in an age that all it is words. Everybody got something to say. It's just chatterboxes all around. It doesn't stop. Everybody, radio, TV, nonstop in the supermarket. Somebody's calling or talking or chirping with somebody. Words. And Christ is saying, an idle word, one idle word will be judged. Paul tells us in Ephesians 4:25, put away lying. Put away lying. Now remember, Paul is talking to people that are redeemed. He's not talking to pagans, because pagans don't have the power to put away lying, because they're of their father, the devil, who it says is the father of lies. So this is talking to the children of God. Since we read in Ephesians 1, the saints, to the saints at Ephesus. So Paul tells us in verse 25 to put away lying. Some common lies. Oh, the check is in the mail. We service what we sell. Money cheerfully refunded. One size fits all, except the size I need. This won't hurt a bit. We've all heard these lies. What is a lie? Anything that is not the full truth, that's a lie. Lying includes far more than just telling direct falsehoods. It's when you nuance your lie. You nuance it and you try to make it some kind of white lie. Any falsehood, when we exaggerate. You know that story you're telling to make yourself look more wonderful? That's lying. Adding falsehood. When we embellish stories to make ourselves look better. You ever notice how the story changes by the time it gets back to you? These are all lies, and Paul's saying, put it away, exaggerating, embellishing stories to make ourselves look better. When we change the facts to spare someone's feelings. That's dominant when you're trying to witness to somebody. We change the facts to spare someone's feelings. We don't want to really say that. We don't want to really say you're damned apart from Christ. We don't want to use words like hell and condemnation. We don't want to use those words, so we dumb down. We want to spare somebody's feelings while they're going off the cliff to hell. Don't want to offend you. That all falls under the category of lying. When we neglect or we hide the truth concerning the attributes of God, that's dominant in pulpits throughout the land today. It's easy to talk about love and mercy and grace, but it's far harder to talk about wrath and justice and holiness and righteousness. So the preacher will leave that out. And he's lying in the process. And you do it when you want to spare the feelings of your neighbors and your relatives and your co-workers. I'll leave out the truth. When we alter the truth, when we cheat on our taxes, when we cheat in school, when we make promises that we cannot keep, when we betray confidence, when we engage in flattery of others. You're wonderful, that was wonderful, you look wonderful. It's like, really? We engage in flattery, betray confidences, make excuses to cover our failures. That started in the garden. Well, I did that because of Adam. Well, I did that because of her. Well, I did that because of the snake. And the snake did that because God created him. It's always passing the buck. Everybody's lying. The dominant thing in this world today is lying. And Paul's saying, therefore, put it away. Put away lying. You are to be transformed. You're metamorphosed from this nasty caterpillar into this beautiful butterfly. Now, Paul's saying one of the ways, and I have to just tell you personally, that was the first thing the Lord changed in my mouth. When I got saved, was this tongue of mine. As we'll see later on. Not my tongue being changed, but James speaking about it. The Lord takes the tongue and he changes it. Especially in this area of lying. We withhold information in order to mislead or deceive. I kind of left that out. Look at Proverbs. Proverbs is full of warnings about lying. Proverbs 26:28. A lying tongue hates those who are crushed by it. And a flattering mouth, notice, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Ruin. When you're telling somebody they're good when they're really not. A flattering mouth works ruin. Proverbs 6:16-19. These 6 things the Lord hates. Yes, 7 are an abomination to him. A proud look, we dealt with that a couple of times. A lying tongue, God hates it. Hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that are swift and run into evil, a false witness who speaks lies, and one who sows discord amongst the brethren. All sins of the mouth, with the tongue. Telling lies, tell me sweet little lies, goes the song. Lies. Your tongue needs to be transformed. This nasty old caterpillar got to become a beautiful butterfly. Believers are to be characterized by the truth. Unfortunately, that's not true today. Christ said he was the truth. He is the truth. We're indwelt by the Spirit of truth. And we're being transformed. And your yes needs to be yes, and your no means to be no. It's one of the hardest things of being a pastor. People tell you, yes, I will do this, and they don't do it. Yes is not yes, and no is not no. It's maybe or later, it could have, it should have, it would have, but it ain't. Where's so-and-so? Don't know. Call up, don't know. Phone's off, can't get in touch with him. The email closed down, the internet shut down worldwide. We're to be brothers and sisters characterized by the truth. That's why Paul's waiting to deal with us now in chapter 4. After 3 chapters, he's telling you all the blessings. Now, therefore, if you notice, verse 25 starts off therefore. That's what it's there for. In light of who you are, this is the way you behave now. Words. The real thing, our words are to be the real thing. Anything less than the whole truth is a complete lie. There's no such thing as a white lie. Oh, that's just a little white lie. Let me show you what the Lord thinks about little white lies. Go to Revelation 21. This is what the Lord thinks of little white lies. Revelation 21, verse 8. But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake, which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Now notice who you that practice lying. Sorcerers, that's drug addicts. Sexually immoral, for you that point at homosexuals and lesbians and those having affairs outside of marriage, well, a liar, the Lord got them in the same thing. Cowardly, unbelievable. Murderers, abominable. Same group. And people lied like nothing. Like nothing. And Paul says, put it away. Put it away. When we're caught in a lie, it undermines our credibility. And it destroys other people's confidence in us. The only credibility that I have as a pastor, as a preacher, is my word. If my word is not true, I'm done. I have no credibility at all. None. It undermines our credibility. It destroys other people's confidence in us. Lying. While we're on the subject of lies and truth, let it also be said that just because something is true does not mean that that needs to be said. Well, I'm just trying to be real. I heard a message about truth and lying like 25 years ago. And I remember some guy afterward goes up to another brother-in-law. I just wanted to tell you, I really hate you. It's like, dude, I don't think that was exactly what was behind the message. Some things are left better unsaid. But if you say something, tell the whole truth. Even though that was true, the guy really did hate him, and he proved it by saying it to him. We must not tell everything. Do you know that the scripture says that love covers a multitude of sins? If you speak the truth, if you speak the word, speak the truth. Now, if you feel that out of love, you got to cover some sin, that's understandable. This is a quote, and beloved, I hope you don't mind if I use this. She has this up in her room. It's a quote that I gave her a while ago. She asked for it, I didn't give it to her. She asked for it, and it's this quote. It has been said, no wonder God put your tongue in a cage, behind your teeth, walled in by your mouth. Give you that again. No wonder God put your tongue in a cage, the cage is the teeth, behind your teeth, walled in by your mouth. Let me give you an example. You were a child, one of your parents physically abused you. Maybe even broke a limb or something like that. That limb healed, you forgot about it. But that thing that parent would have said with that mouth, you would have never forget. I wish you were never born. And if that rings true with anything, God bless you, the Lord can redeem that. But that mouth, those words, what you say to your child, you'll never be nothing. That husband or wife that speaks nasty to each other. While we're there, look at the next text. Ephesians 4, verse 29. Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth. See that word corrupt right there? We must not unload all the garbage in our souls. That word corrupt means rotten. Rotten speech. Like that piece of vegetable or meat or fruit that you found in your refrigerator, hiding behind all the other stuff in your refrigerator. That rotten meat, that rotten vegetable, that rotten fruit, that nasty, filthy, funky thing. Paul says, let it not, what? Proceed out of your mouth. Strong words. That's why Christ said, every other word you're going to give an account for. I hear it, I'm standing in the supermarket. Kids yelling at the parents yelling at the kids, the husband yelling at the wife is yelling at the kid. I'm just trying to get a quart of milk. And the filth and the garbage that's just flowing out of the mouth. It's not acceptable. I hear it all the time. Well, after all, we're married. So you should be blessing your wife. Or your wife should be blessing the husband. Rotten speech coming out of the mouth, corrupt. Rotten fruit, spoiled foods. You wouldn't want to eat something rotten. You don't want to eat that nasty piece of meat laying there. Or that piece of fruit you found under the refrigerator 6 months later. With all the green mold and everything. That's what Paul's saying is coming out of your mouth. And Paul's saying, as a child of God, there's no place for that. You're to speak blessings. This mouth is supposed to speak blessings. We must guard our tongues against profanity. Here, I'll really step on some feet right now. Euphemisms. You're not to use euphemisms. Taking the Lord's name in vain. Like, oh my God. That's taking the Lord's name in vain. You're making less of it than it is. I hear that out of 2-year-olds. All of those words that you grew up with. For old timers here, Jeepers Creepers. What do you think that is? That's Jesus Christ. Jeepers Creepers. Doggone it. Figure it out. Those are raw sins, brothers and sisters. It's a way to soften down what you're doing. Those are euphemisms. Heck. Sound familiar? All of that is euphemisms for taking the Lord's name in vain. Gee whiz, but that's Jesus Christ. That's people cursing without cursing. But they are cursing in the Lord's eyes because he said, don't let any corrupt speech come out of your mouth. This is how serious about the speech is. Look at James 3. I usually don't do this many verses, but since it's this important. James 3, verses 1 through 12. This issue of the tongue, like I said, that's all it is. You turn on the radio and you can't go anywhere without people chirping. I had to go 20 miles out into the Everglades to get away from the voices. And then I think some bird come by and started saying something. James 3, verses 1 through 12. My brethren, he's talking to his brother. Let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he's a perfect man. So obviously there's no perfect man. Also able to bridle the whole body. Notice. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths so that they may obey us and turn their whole body. Look also at ships. Although they are so large and driven by fierce winds, they are turned by, a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. You see how great a forest a little fire kindles? Hitler set this world on fire with that tongue of his. Nebuchadnezzar and the apostles in Christ set it on fire, speaking righteousness. Notice verse 6, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature. And notice, it is set on fire by hell. You don't think you need to guard your tongue? For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and creature of the sea is tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no man can tame the tongue. It is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless our God and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the similitude or likeness of God. Out of the same mouth proceed blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. Does a spring send forth fresh water and bitter from the same opening? You know that's not true. Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Thus no spring yields both salt water and fresh. That tongue of yours is either going to curse or it's going to bless. One or the other. It ain't. It isn't going to do both. But the good news is that by the power and help of the Holy Spirit, it's possible to get our tongue under control. This is such a problem. When the tongue is under the control of the Lord, we will use it in the right manner. Notice what Paul tells us in the second half. Turn back to Ephesians 4. We're done with James. Ephesians 4, look at the second half of verse 29. Like I said, you always got to understand the bad news before you can solve it with the good news. The second half of verse 29. I mentioned about the corrupt word proceeding out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, so that for this purpose, that it may impart grace to its hearers. That little word, that's a purpose word. That's purpose. What is the purpose? You get your tongue under control so that you will be able to impart grace to the hearers of that mouth of yours, as opposed to deadly destruction, ruining people's lives, ruining the culture that you're in. What do you think brought this culture down? It's the mouth of people. And the mouth just reveals what's in the heart anyway. What comes out of your mouth is really what's in your heart. When people say, oh, he got a good heart, she got a good heart, well, let me hear that mouth of theirs. I'll tell you if they got a good heart or a bad heart. Comes right out of the mouth. What's edification mean? To build up, to build up, helping others to grow. Will edify others by being helpful, encouraging, constructive, uplifting, by being a blessing. What is the whole point of the message? The tongue is a problem. Your tongue is supposed to be a blessing to impart grace. What am I trying to do? I told you the bad news first, about put away lying, about no corruption, no rotten fruit coming out of that mouth of yours. And now what's the good news? So that you would be edifying, that you would build others up. There's times when our speech needs to be corrective in nature. And that's part of telling the truth. Is to be corrective in nature. Like I said, a lot of times people just want to get the fluff. Everybody pats you on the back and tells you you're lovely. But when you tell people their true condition, you're wicked, oh, well, I'm not going to get that many compliments, that many pats on the back then. But did I tell you the truth? I remember the old preacher said that once on an airline, a woman said to him, oh, that was mean, that was cruel, that was this, that was the other thing. And he said to her, but is it the truth? Not that you like to hear it, is it the truth? But the truth is told so that eventually that you would be able to impart grace to the hearers. Even when these times arise, these hard times, these corrective times, what we say must come from a heart of love. That's why I said sometimes some things are better left unsaid. So when you say with your tongue, it's got to be from a heart of love. It's like, well, brother, I'm just telling you, I want to speak the truth to you. You really look horrible today. Your wife is horrible looking too. And, I just wanted to bless you. Those kids are ugly too. Even though all those may be true, it's not from a heart of love. From a heart of love. Would it impart grace? Look at what it was said about the Master. Look at Luke 4. What it was said of Christ. May this be said of us. Luke 4:22. So all bore witness to him and marveled at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, is this not Joseph's son? They bore witness and marveled at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. Is that true of you? And that was about Christ, who just got done calling people a brood of vipers. Oh, thank you for that gracious word, called me a viper. But that's what he was known by, and that's what we're to be known by. The gracious words of our speech. The whole idea here is that our words are to be influenced by the grace of God. I'm going to give you all a lesson that I learned 20-some years ago from an old Hebrew man that became a believer, him and his wife, and they were tortured for Christ for years and years and years in communist Romania. And this was the lesson that I learned in the 1990s. And it's this. In Hebrew, there's a term that's used to tell or to speak. If you tell somebody something, or if you speak words to somebody, there's a phrase that's used. And it's called the la sapir, or la sapir. You hear the word sapphire in there? Sapir. La sapir. And it means this. In Hebrews' mind, when they speak, they're to give you a jewel. A jewel. A gem. If I can't give you a gem or a jewel, a lot of times that's why you don't hear me speak. At that particular time, I got the bag closed. The gems are stuck in there. I can't get them out. but we're to give jewels. Never forget that. Large pair, sapphires. When you speak, that's what you're to give. When I come in this pulpit, that is my goal, to bring forth jewels. And remember, sometimes with jewels, anybody that knows about jewels and gems, sometimes, most times, jewels and gems are rather hard. Like with diamonds, they use it to cut glass. Sometimes you might hear a lot of hard truths, but know that that's from a heart of love, and it's a sapphire. It's a gem, it's a jewel. So when you speak to your neighbor, to your spouse, to your kids, to your co-workers, to one another here, we're to speak jewels. Put away lying. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And put away the rotten words that come out of your mouth. You're to give jewels. And as that same old rabbi taught, if you can't give a jewel, then keep that mouth of yours shut. He couldn't put it any plainer. I remember the 25 years. If you don't have a jewel to give, keep your mouth shut.